I realize in my mind, in my heart, I know that the priorities, the fundamental laws of nature, I'm a part of nature, and I have to conform my life to those laws. And it's not a big mental stretch. As I say, the laws of nature that, and I would include human nature, I talked about principles of positive relationships. Those are basic laws of human nature. I believe you used to call them natural law back in the days when we created this country. So they're basic laws. But it's like saying, well, I'm not going to respect the law of gravity. Well, you don't have to, but it's not going to change. You drop something heavy on your toe, it's still going to hurt. I don't care whether you believe the law of gravity or not. So say in your own heart and mind, I have to conform my life to the laws of nature. Nature is not going to conform to me. And if I'm going to live within a society and be a part of that society, then I have to respect the social values of other people. And then I'm free to pursue my individual self-interest within those bounds of society and nature. That starts with us. Each action that we take, we should not only just consider what's the cost of it or what's it going to make me economically, but what are the social implications of that? What's it going to do to other people that I care about and other people in general? What are the ethical implications, the ecological implications for the future? When we start making our decisions like that ourselves, then we're in a position to demand of those that are in position of leaderships to represent those same values that we have in our heart and our soul. And we can reject people who don't reflect those values in whatever they do. That's where it has to start. It has to arise from a consensus of the people. Why didn't we prevail on the GMO issue on alfalfa, even though there was a broad outcry across the country, a broad movement in opposition, and people did everything that within their power they could to stop it? The consensus was not great enough to convince the powers in Washington to divide the economic interest of the industry, the GMO industry, and make decisions that reflected the broad will of the people. It's only when the consensus of the people reaches a point where you begin to change the leaderships and reject people that are going to do things for your economic self-interest but will not do things for the broader interest of society or for the future of humanity. Today we are a country that is held hostage by our own individual selfishness. Maybe not you and me, but the society as a whole. Because every time we threaten to do something that would really take care of the earth and rebuild society, they say, oh, it's going to cost jobs. The economy's not going to grow. We got to get out of the recession first. As long as we continue to be scared, afraid to stand up for what we know in our heart, the things that are right and good, because it's somehow going to affect our pocketbook, we'll never bring about change. Susan B. Anthony. Susan B. Anthony, a champion of women's rights and women's suffrage back in the early part of the last century, I have her quote on my wall. She says, cautious, careful people always casting around to maintain their reputation and social standing can never bring about reform. You have to be willing to be anything or nothing in society's estimation if you're serious about bringing about change. That's what it'll take. Basically a revolution among the people. It says we're going to take our country back. We're going to move it in the direction we need to go. The people that are at the public trough living off your and my tax dollars today are not going to be moved away from that trough by persuasion. You're going to have to kick them away from it. Yes, next question.
Yes, in 2009, the World Wildlife Fund designated one country in this entire world as being truly sustainable, and that country was Cuba. And that was the honor that was given to them for having a very low carbon footprint in combination with a very high human development index of literacy and longevity, low infant mortality. So that combination made them considered to be truly sustainable. And this is a country that is filled with workers' cooperatives, where they do embody all the principles of social, ethical, and economic that you talk about, and where much of their vegetables are organic, and where the government helps young farmers be back on the land by giving land to a young farmer and his family to go back to the land and farm for free and give them the tools and the means by which to do so. So, I mean, without using the S word, you know, is there a way that, that we can have truly sustainable agriculture in a country that is capitalist?
Well, I wrote a book one time called Sustainable Capitalism. Somebody asked me about that. I still have it. I'm kind of proud of the book. But when I first wrote the book, the title of it was The Economics of Sustainability. And the publisher at that time, that was back in the heyday of capitalism 5 or 6 years ago, you know, before the economy fell apart. They said, we can't publish a book that has economics in the title, nobody will buy it. Well, the last chapter in that book, which was a very short chapter, it was called Sustainable Capitalism. And it was talking about in that last chapter, and they had a copy out here, and I don't know if somebody already bought it or whatever, I don't know if they got more. But anyway, in the last chapter, what I was talking about, I said, well, Adam Smith was right in that there's a legitimate role for markets within a society. I believe that. I believe there's a legitimate role for the private economy within the bounds of the social values and the ethical values that I've described here. But I said that Adam Smith was wrong because he didn't anticipate that society would flip that upside down and that they would put economic values ahead of social and ethical, because Adam Smith believed very strongly in ethical values and social values and so on. So I would call that true capitalism. That's classical capitalism. But I got a new book coming out in the spring from the same publisher called The Essentials of Economic Sustainability. See, they've changed. And in this book, I was very careful because I got accused of defending capitalism when really that wasn't my intent. I said there's good things about capitalism, but you have to have the social principles really you find in socialism or wherever. In the new book, I wrote it for an international audience. It's short, it's simple. I hope that it's interpreted. There's no examples, there's no references because those would all be culturally specific. But a long answer to a short question, but my view is I don't care whether you call it capitalism or socialism or a theocracy, as long as it's sustainable. Because none of those systems of the past in their pure form are sustainable. What we need is a blending of the ethics and the social in the individual economic value and a balance of those. That's what sustainability is about. It's about balancing those, regenerating the productivity of the earth and the productivity of society so we can sustain the ability to meet our individual impersonal needs, which are important. It's not that the economy isn't important, we just need to keep it in its place. Okay? Next question.
Hi. This isn't a farming or an economic question. It's a social question.
I comment on anything and everything.
What do you think, or what would you say about dealing with people and groups of people who are led by their own strong ethical commitments to advocate for change that's different from the change that you want? Did that make sense?
Right, yeah. Kind of controversial issues, people with strong different opinions on these various things. And I said that I deal with everything kind of flippantly, but if you're going to deal with sustainability, you can't just stay in one little narrow place. You can't just be an economist or just be a sociologist or just be an ecologist. If you're going to deal with sustainability, you have to deal with it whole. Now, I'm an economist, and I know as much about the basic core of the economic discipline. I'd stand up and debate anybody. I might lose, but I'd put up a good debate in that area. I couldn't do that in sociology or ecology, but I know enough about those other areas in sociology and so on. But if you're not literate in those broad ranges, you're not really dealing with sustainability. You're just dealing with one piece of it. Now, to your particular question, which I think is very important, I've been asked this before. I would start where I really talked about in my presentation. I think you get any group of people together that has a wide range of differing views, that feel very strongly about something, and they say, okay, let's discuss this and see if we can find some common ground. But let's start with this as common ground. In our relationships, in our conversation, our negotiation with each other, as we're talking about if we can find something common to work on, let's promise to each other that we will be honest, that we will be fair, that we will be responsible, that we will be respectful, and that we will be compassionate. And if we can't agree on those as to how we're going to treat each other, then I would say there's no hope of getting anything done. If we can't be fair and honest, respectful, compassionate, responsible in our relationships with each other, then I don't know how to relate to people that aren't willing to at least try to do that. And I think if we get disparate group together and we say, let's start from there, and then let's have a conversation about what we agree and don't agree on, but let's do it in a way that's respectful, in a way that's compassionate, in a way that's honest. And then I think you'll make progress. I'm not saying you'll all reach agreement on everything. We don't need to. Diversity is a great thing. We just need to agree on enough core values that we can move in a positive direction together. And we'll take the first step, and then we'll try to figure out where the next step is, and then we'll take the next step, and pretty soon we'll find out that we're reaching more and more areas of agreement as we learn more from each other. My views on things are always evolving. You know, I make a terrible politician. You can go back and find something I wrote last year that I don't agree with this year. But I don't apologize for that, because I'm learning from other people as I go. Do we have time for...
I think we got time for one more question, John. Okay. Maybe somebody from over here?
So my question deals with the word that we won't talk about, which is growth. It goes back 40 years when they wrote the book Limits to Growth, and Heinberg's recent book, The End of Growth. So why don't we talk about degrowth?
Right. There's a conference in May up in Montreal. I hope to make it up there. It's the degrowth conference. But anyway, I think that's an important question. The thing is in the economic situation that we're talking about today, everybody's talking about how do we get the economy growing again. Well, I would argue when the economy starts growing again, we've created another economic illusion, because you know, that's all there is. We've eroded the base of real growth. We've eroded the base of natural resources and human resources so much in this country that the only way we can grow is extracting it from somebody else, from somewhere else on the earth, or doing some sort of trick like that. But that's no reason to despair, because we all already have enough. We have more than enough. If we really want to increase our quality of life more than anything else, we need to focus on what Keynes talked about. We live well enough materially. We need to focus on more positive relationships. We've got a long way to go in terms of improving quality of life as much as we can improve it in quality of relationships. For example, if we could get along with people in other countries, we could save $500 billion right off of the cost of the military. We wouldn't have to fight it. And then we would go on from there. We could focus on developing more purpose and meaning in life. How many people do we have in this country, particularly teenagers, that kill themselves every year? Why do you kill yourself? When is suicide a logical thing to do? When there's no purpose to living, then why get up in the morning? Then why not? And when life is inherently painful, so when it gets painful, just end it. We need to have a greater sense of purpose and meaning in life. There's no limit to how much we can increase our well-being in this country. As I said, we just should declare victory and move on. We had won the war in the 50s and we didn't know it. Now we know it. So let's just declare victory. We don't need any more stuff. We don't need growth. We just need to share what we have with more among each other, spend our time and spend our energy working less. Keynes talked about this back in his book. He speculated that we have a need to work, but he figured about 3 days of work, 3 days a week would be about enough to fill that need for most of us. And I can say in retirement, that's true. You know, I need to work 3 days a week, and that's all. So everybody work toward 3 days a week. The rest of the time, spend with your family, spend with your friends, spend meditating, spend in contemplation. Get a greater sense of purpose and meaning in your life. Build stronger relationships within your family, within community. There's no end to the progress that we can make in the future, which we learn to live wisely, really well. Thank you very much.